It is break out there. Happy Sunday. Now, moving on to the news. They are now calling Trump a racist. He put up a post where they got all the senators and Congress people and even Obama, their heads on animals. So they're trying to say that Trump is calling Barack Obama a monkey. Let's take a look at Sunday morning with Maria Bartiromo to see if they talk about it. Is Trump really a racist? And, a lot of it has to do with whatever political side you're on, that you can say, yes, he's a racist or no, which is really telling. It tells a lot. But let's take a look at Maria Bartiromo, see what's on the news. Oh, especially that kidnapping too, with that grandmother that got kidnapped. That's another big news story. Let's see.
God bless you.
All right, Maria Bartiromo coming up next.
Good Sunday morning, everyone. Welcome to Sunday Morning Futures. I'm Maria Bartiromo. Today, a rally for the record books.
Hold up, let me pause it right there. But that reporter, Nancy, I think it's Nancy Grace, her mother getting kidnapped is crazy. Hopefully they'll get the perps quickly. And you know what they're not going to talk about? Corey Holcomb. That's another crazy story. All right, let's see if it loads up.
Stocks soar on expectations of a strong economy in the year ahead as President Trump keeps his boot on the necks of the rogue leadership in Iran, slapping sanctions on Iran's oil sector while threatening 25% tariffs on any country still doing business with Iran. Today, we follow the money.
We have seen the Iranian leadership wiring money out of the country like crazy. So the rats are leaving the ship. And that is a good sign that they know the end may be near.
Coming up, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is here on the economy, Iran, and tapping into younger generations for support ahead of the midterms.
Nice. Nice.
As the secretary hooks up with rapper Nicki Minaj in a TikTok video to sell the Trump accounts, and the rapper says she is President Trump's #1 fan.
Yeah.
Plus, Homeland Security Committee member and Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman is here on Iran, the economy, and funding the Department of Homeland Security before it's forced to shut down this Friday. Then, near Congresswoman Claudia Tenney on the House set to vote this week on the SAVE Act ahead of the president's State of the Union address in 2 weeks' time. Plus, the case that is gripping the nation. Savannah Guthrie's mother still missing more than a week after her abduction. Will the FBI crack open the case and bring the 84-year-old mother home and her kidnappers to justice? The very latest evidence scrubbed and analyzed this morning with former FBI Special Agent Nicole Parker and retired NYPD Inspector Paul Morrow. It's all right here, right now on Sunday Morning Futures.
Let's go. It's funny. She doesn't bring up the monkey situation with Obama.
And we begin this Sunday morning with new information on the search for Nancy Guthrie, who was apparently kidnapped from her Tucson, Arizona home last Saturday night, in the middle of the night. It has now been 8 days since the 84-year-old mother was last seen alive, with law enforcement working around the clock, searching for clues about her whereabouts. Last night, Nancy Guthrie's daughter, NBC News anchor Savannah Guthrie, posted a new heart-wrenching message on Instagram directed at the possible abductor, pleading for the return of her mother.
We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
Alicia Acuna is live in Tucson, Arizona with the very latest. Alicia, what can you tell us?
And we will pay. That's crazy.
Hi, Maria. Well, about 4.5 hours after Savannah Guthrie posted that message with her siblings, law enforcement returned to her sister Annie's home. We don't yet know if that video message from the family generated some sort of response from Nancy's abductors or if it prompted this action by the investigators. We do know at least 4 of them arrived at the house, which is about a 10-minute drive from Nancy's place. They went inside around 8 p.m. At one point, flashes, possibly a camera, could be seen from the garage and another part of the house. They spent about 2.5 hours there and came out with a brown paper bag. One of the Pima County deputies was seen wearing latex gloves as they left the house. It did not appear that any family members, however, were at the home at this time. And then last night, around 7 p.m., 2 sheriff's deputies arrived here at Nancy Guthrie's home. It is unclear why, but our Fox flight team got this video of someone in the back of the house with a flashlight appearing to be searching. Local TV news station KGUN 9, one of the outlets that received the alleged ransom note, revealed the author demanded $6 million in Bitcoin with a deadline of 5 p.m. Monday. If missed, it would threaten Nancy's life. The Guthries say they will pay.
When you want to transfer Bitcoin around the world, it's going to take you anywhere from about 10 minutes to 1 hour, depending upon the amount and the speed in which you've asked for this to go, for it to get from one place to the next place. It's still an open-ended question about whether this is traceable or not. It can be at times, sometimes it's not.
And Maria, we have yet to receive an update of any kind if that payment, in fact, went through or even happened. Back to you.
All right, Alicia, thank you. We will check back. Alicia Acuna, thank you. We will be digging in more on the search for Nancy Guthrie coming up in just a moment when I speak with former FBI Special Agent Nicole Parker and retired NYPD Inspector Paul Morrow. So join us coming up on that. But first, turning to America's strengthening economy, Friday's record-breaking market and President Trump's point man on economic policy. The stock market soared on Friday to all-time highs, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average closing above the 50,000 mark for the first time ever, amidst a backdrop of better-than-expected economic growth, strong earnings, and expectations of a productivity and consumer boom this year. Just 2 months away from tax day, when citizens are expected to receive thousands of dollars in refund checks, as the president's signature legislation, the One Big Beautiful Bill, impacts citizens and businesses across the country. As you can see, stocks as well as gold prices rallied across the board on Friday. Here's the president this past week and after the closing bell on Friday. Watch.
As you probably saw today, the stock market, the Dow, just hit 50,000, 3 years ahead of schedule. They said probably couldn't be done in the 4-year period. We did it in 1 year. So we're 3 years ahead of schedule, broke an all-time record, 50,000, which they say couldn't happen.
The president later on Truth Social predicted that the market will double to 100,000 by the end of his term in January 2029. The economy grew almost 5% in the fourth quarter, much better than expected. But worries do remain about AI efficiencies replacing jobs and still crippling inflation, which remains above the Federal Reserve's target. As the president's pick for the next chairman of the Fed, Kevin Warsh, faces pushback from at least one Republican, outgoing Senator Tom Tillis, ahead of Warsh's confirmation process expected in the coming months. We will get the January jobs report this upcoming Wednesday after it was delayed because of the government shutdown, as we await whether the Department of Homeland Security will shut down this upcoming Friday because of Democrat demands of changes to the president's immigration enforcement. Still no acknowledgement from the Democrats on the high cost of goods, beginning with the Biden administration, which of course resulted in overall inflation at 21.5%. That was a 40-year high, due to $7 trillion in spending during the prior Biden years. Instead, Senate Democrats pounced on Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent this week during a heated Senate Banking Committee hearing. Watch this.
Reclaiming my time.
Was a mass unfettered immigration.
Mr. Chair, will you let him know that when I asked him
Time does belong to the housing stock, Gulliver.
10 and 20 million immigrants.
Can you
Look
shut
at the
him up?
housing stock of working Americans, and can you maintain some level of dignity?
Gentleman's time has expired.
No, my time has not expired.
Mr. Secretary, can you commit right here and now that Trump's Fed nominee, Kevin Warsh, will not be sued, will not be investigated by the Department of Justice
No.
if he doesn't cut interest rates exactly the way that Donald Trump wants?
That is up to the president. Can you commit that you will?
I'm sorry.
Can you commit that you will not hold
He
hold
won't
up?
be sued if
Can
he
you-
doesn't
can-
drop interest rates,
Can you?
and he won't be criminally investigated.
The
That was
president also
supposed
made
to
a
be
big
the
joke about you that I won't
softball.
repeat, Senator Warren.
That was the
Oh, actually,
easy
I will.
one.
He said he had
You
reservations.
know, if this was a
But
joke,
the-
why not just say so?
It was
can't
a joke,
commit-
and he made a joke about you
I-
too, Senator Warren.
Joining me now, the man himself, our nation's 79th Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary Scott Bessent. Secretary, thanks so much for being here this morning.
Maria, good to be with you.
And that Senate hearing really went into wild commentary there. Did any of the Democrats ask you about economic growth, sir?
Maria, they can't compete on economic growth because the president's plan is working. The Trump economy is delivering for the American people, that we have strong growth, and inflation is in fact coming down. For the past 3 months, inflation is 2.1%, close to the Federal Reserve's target, and a measure called trueflation, which is daily observations now high, and the lowest
All right.
crime rate in over 100 years. Democrats don't want to talk about that. They want to hoot and holler.
So what kind of growth are you expecting for 2026? We're looking at Friday's market rally. The Dow was up 1,200 points, 2.5%. The NASDAQ was up 1%. Even gold was up. And when you look at year to date, actually gold has outperformed stocks. Gold up 14% year to date. The S&P 500 up 1%. Tell us your expectations for growth, and also a word on gold. What's driving that move as well?
Well, Maria, what I can tell you is what we are seeing, the cyclical components of the market expand. So that's why the Dow hit a new high, but importantly, the Russell, which is a small cap index, has hit a new high. We're seeing the industrial sectors under the market hit new highs. And in my 35, 40 years on Wall Street, that tells me Wall Street is telling you that Main Street is about to prosper. We are seeing a big cyclical recovery. The president's agenda set the table in 2025, and now the American people are going to benefit in 26. And that's what the stock market is telling us. The stock market lives in the future, and I think we're going to have very strong economic growth and very strong job gains and very strong real income growth.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the move in gold, normally people buy gold and hard assets because they're not sure. They're sort of hedging their bets. But there's also a big move in rare earth and critical minerals as the president comes up with this stockpile to compete against China. Is that part of it? What do you think's behind the gold move?
Well, the gold move, things have gotten a little unruly in China. They're having to tighten margin requirements. So the gold looks to me kind of like a classical speculative blow-off. But what I will tell you, we had at the State Department, there was a rare earth ministerial, countries all around the world. This is what U.S. leadership looks like. The U.S. is leading in solving this rare earth problem. Countries are not sovereign. You are not sovereign if one country can control your supply chains, and we are making our supply chains resilient.
Yeah, for sure. There are worries, however, Secretary, and of course it's about AI. We've already seen companies cut jobs because of AI efficiencies. What is the plan from your standpoint at Treasury, at the White House, to replace the jobs that will no doubt go away because of AI efficiencies?
Well, Maria, it's not a given that they have to go away because of AI efficiencies. In the history of technological change, you see new jobs created. I had a major credit card company in a few weeks ago, and they just said it was the distribution of jobs within the company that's going to change. They said that their billing and customer service, AI is going to take over, but they're going to move all those employees over into their travel sector.
Okay. Well, we're also waiting on some big decisions. I mean, we've got to see the Kevin Warsh confirmation happen. We've got to hear from the Supreme Court on whether or not President Trump can use tariffs in an emergency. What are your expectations? When will we hear from the Supreme Court? And I know that you've told me before you think that you are going to win on this, but what's the plan if you don't, if the Supreme Court rules against the president?
Well, it would be a gigantic loss for the American people. President Trump has used his ᗷᖇEᗩKITG authority consistently throughout the year to negotiate better deals for the American people. And it's an emergency authority. And what was an emergency if it wasn't the fentanyl crisis? And we are seeing Canada, Mexico, China come to the table to stop this scourge of the American people. On October 8th, when China threatened to institute a rare earth export control all around the world, for not just us, but all the industrial nations, President Trump threatened a 100% tariff, and China came to the negotiating table and delayed the export controls, which would have crushed the global economy. So President Trump has used it for the American people, and it would be a big loss to take that away from him.
Yeah, I always scratch my head in terms of how it is that we deal with our number one adversary, China, in a business like fashion. When, you know, over here we're finding a biolab in California, over there we're arresting people for bringing in pathogens, COVID, cover up, you know, intellectual property theft, the whole 9 yards. Secretary, you told me.
Maria, I would add too, the president has used ᗷᖇEᗩKITG to bring in trillions of dollars of investment into the U.S. Companies are now 2025, they worked on the plans to build their factories. Many have already broken ground. I think we're going to see record factory groundbreakings in 2026. The president and I were out in Iowa a few weeks ago, and John May, the president of John Deere, said that John Deere is building 2 new factories, one in Indiana, one in North Carolina. And the president said, why are you doing that? And he said, sir, 100% your tariff policy.
Yeah. Well, I know that the president has done really an incredible job in terms of recognizing we cannot be reliant on China, our number one adversary. Do you have any estimate for us as far as when we are going to see that China trade deal in writing?
No, but I can tell you that the Chinese have lived up to their end of the bargain. They've completed their soybean purchases, and I was on the call with President Trump, Party Chair Xi. And again, very, very important, the relationship between the two leaders. And it's my belief that President Trump is the only world leader who Xi respects. And that relationship between the two of them allows for the relationship to be, respectful, but we're going to be great competitors with them. We don't want to disengage, but we do need to de-risk.
What about Kevin Warsh? Tom Tillis has been pushing back. He says he's not going to confirm anybody for the president until the probe into Jay Powell is over. What are your expectations that Kevin Warsh is confirmed, and when do you expect that?
Well, I would point out that when Kevin Warsh was up to be a governor of the Fed, he got 100 votes, and that was led by his home state senator, Chuck Schumer. So, and Senator Tillis has come out and said he thinks that Kevin Warsh is a very strong candidate. So I would say, why don't we get the hearings underway and see where Jeanine Pirro's investigation goes?
Okay. Look, there's also increasing worry about the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. Obviously, after the 2008 financial crisis, the Fed unleashed all of these extraordinary monetary policy tools. They call it quantitative easing. But you now have been able to fix things in just over a year at the Treasury, you and the White House with your new policies. Now that we've got growth as a priority and you've got the economy where you want it as you rein in inflation, is it fair to say that the Federal Reserve's adoption of these large-scale asset purchases should be wound down?
Again, that'll be up to the Fed in terms of what they want to do with the balance sheet. I wouldn't expect them to do anything quickly. They've moved to an ample regime policy, and that does require a larger balance sheet. So, I would think that they'll probably sit back, take at least a year to decide what they want to do is pretty clear to me. I wrote a 7,000-word essay in the International Economy magazine. I called it gain of function monetary policy.
That's right.
Saying that the Fed had gotten kind of out of control. And I think that Kevin Warsh is going to be very independent,
It's funny.
but mindful that the Fed is accountable to the American people.
Real quick on this crypto legislation that seems to be hung up in the Senate, Secretary, do you expect that the Clarity Act will in fact come back for a markup? And why are we having a debate about bank margins? Where do you stand on this? Do you think crypto platforms should be able to pay rewards, pay customers for moving stablecoin or money out of traditional bank deposit accounts and keep them on crypto platforms? Where are you on that issue?
Again, Maria, I think what we're seeing in the crypto market over the past few months means more than ever that the U.S., we need market structure, we need clarity, and we need to get this across the line this spring. We got a few recalcitrant actors who said, well, it'd be better to have no legislation than the legislation we don't want. And I think both on the banks, the other crypto firms are united against them. So we need to get this across the line. The U.S., under President Trump's leadership, the U.S. is becoming the crypto capital of the world with our best practices, best regulation. And for crypto to remain a viable digital asset and move forward, we need to get this Clarity Act done.
So you think it will be? It'll come back fairly soon then?
I'm optimistic, and there's bipartisan support here.
Yeah, okay. Real quick on Iran, that's your portfolio, right? Sanctions. Do sanctions really work, Secretary? Because a lot of people tell me, look, sanctions don't work at all. And, the people of Iran want President Trump to do something more. Is there anything else we should expect in terms of the president getting involved in the regime killing its citizens?
Well, I can tell you, Maria, what doesn't work is handing the regime pallets of cash like we saw in Democratic administration. Last March, President Trump instructed me to use the authorities of Treasury to put maximum pressure on Iran. And what we saw by December, and this is the sanctioning the oil sales, tracking down the money. And what we saw because of that in December, one of the largest banks in Iran collapsed. The central bank had to bail them out, and they ended up with massive inflation, which has led to economic chaos. Their currencies collapsed. And I can tell you, Maria, what we are seeing is the rats are leaving the ship. The Iranian leadership is wiring money out like crazy. And what we are going to do at Treasury is we're going to get that money back for the Iranian people when there is a solution to this problem.
And real quick, I know you just did a trade deal with India, but you wanted to mention Japan.
Yep. Well, Japan, the prime minister called a snap election, the quickest snap election in Japanese history. And boy, has she had a big victory today. She's going to have 2/3 majority in the upper house. President Trump endorsed her last week. She is a great ally, great relationship with the president. And when Japan is strong, the U.S. is strong in Asia.
Okay, we will leave it there. Of course, another partially China story there as Japan and the U.S. partner. Good to see you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent.
This is the best Treasury Secretary ever. The man knows what he's doing. He's a billionaire already, just doing this for the people because the man got the money.
All right, we'll be right back with Senator John Fetterman. Welcome back. Democrat leadership is threatening to block further funding for Homeland Security, which expires this upcoming Friday after they would agree to fund the DHS only for 2 weeks unless changes are made to the agencies enforcing the laws against illegal immigration. We just heard from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Joining me now with reaction is Pennsylvania Democrat Senator John Fetterman, an integral member of the Senate Homeland Security Committee. Senator, it's great to have you this morning. Thank you so much for being here. Do you expect the Department of Homeland Security to be forced to shut down on Friday? Are you going to vote to fund DHS?
No, I absolutely would expect that it's going to shut down. I know that we, the Democrats, we provided, I think it was 10 kinds of basic things. And then the Republican pushed back quickly, saying that that's like a Christmas wish list and that they're non-starters. I truly don't know what specifically are the Democrats' red lines, that it has to be. Certainly not going to get all 10. But now, if I had to say now, they would probably expect that there is going to be a shutdown because things are just drowned down to committed to do that. And for me, it's always, as a Democrat, I've always been, just secure our border, deport all the criminals. And now I joined with Katie Britt to deliver the Lakin bill now as well too. So for me, I think those are very fundamental things that most Americans signed up for. And that's what I'm going to come forward. And I hope it doesn't shut down, because we could all agree to focus on those things. And that's where I'm going to be and where my vote's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's going to impact TSA, people's travel, certainly under the Department of Homeland Security. It's going to impact FEMA.
Yep.
What I don't understand, Senator, is why it is so difficult to get the SAVE Act into the portfolio and onto the floor. What's wrong with having an ID to vote? Chuck Schumer last week said if the SAVE Act even attempts to get to the Senate, it is dead on arrival. Why?
Yeah, well, multiple things. Now, I travel air 49 out of 52 years a week. So I'm going to see a lot of TSA people, and they're not going to get paid. And now I can't have an answer for them. Other one, it's just basic politics right now. I think every American deserves to be paid for the work that they've done. And I refuse. I don't want to jump back into that. I've been a Democrat that refused to shut our government down last year. I mean, that's real lives. And they're not wealthy if they're TSA folks. They're allowing us to fly safe here in America. And that's part of that conversation now, too. And now, me as a Democrat, I do not believe that it's unreasonable or to show ID just to vote. And I remind everybody that less than a year ago in Wisconsin, they added that to the Constitution by a 63%, passing, to put that in the Constitution that you have to show ID to vote. And they also elected a very, very liberal justice into their Supreme Court. So it's not a radical idea for regular Americans to show your ID to vote. And it's absolutely, those things are not Jim Crow or anything. Of course, that's part of an awful, awful legacy of our nation for so long ago. But where we are now, trying to find a way forward, just trying to call balls and strikes, seeing what's unreasonable, hopefully we don't have to do, and pay the TSA people and everyone, secure our border, and focus on deporting all of those kinds of criminals wherever they are. That's the guy that votes for that and supports that as a Democrat. And I don't ever want to vote to shut our government down again.
Right. And you are very much where the people are. Look, that's what most people would like to see. Prioritize the criminals, take the criminals out of the country who are here illegally.
Simple logic. And after those criminals get out, then start working on everybody else. Everybody who came here illegally gotta go.
But are also committing crime. But I mean, is there any other way to view the fact that Democrat leadership refused to have ID to vote? Is there any other way to read it other than they want illegals to vote? I mean, can you read it any other way?
Nope.
Well, I mean, for me, the SAVE Act is not going to pass because of the filibuster, because they would need at least 7 or 8 Democratic votes to pass that. And now remember also, all the Democrats, all we wanted to eliminate the filibuster, except for it was Manchin and Sinema. They wanted to eliminate the filibuster, and now our party loves the filibuster. And then I do think think the filibuster is a good thing, and it does force us to work together overall.
Right. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. But I will say this as a Democrat, I do not believe it's radical or extreme to just produce ID to vote overall.
Exactly. All right, Senator, I got to get your take on Iran. This upcoming week, President Trump will be meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. What do you want to see happen here? There are reports tens of thousands of citizens have been killed at the hands of the Khomeini regime.
Yeah, heartbreaking. Their region, just absolutely massacred thousands and thousands and thousands of their own young people. Now, as I was the only Democrat that actually cheered and pushed to strike their nuclear facilities last year, and they were absolutely successful. And we can't ever allow Iran to acquire a nuclear bomb. And now, just a couple of days ago on my socials, I put out, I don't think, and I see any value in these kinds of negotiations. And Iran just declared saying, hey, absolutely, we're going to continue to enrich uranium. And that's their goal. They want to go back to try to acquire a nuclear weapon. And that's why I would be a no on the Iranian Powers Act, because the president they should have the freedom to have another surgical strike to make sure they do not acquire those kinds of nuclear weapons.
Nope.
So well said. Yep. So well said. Senator, we are grateful that you are where you are. We thank you so much for joining us this morning, and I hope you'll come back soon, Senator. Thank you for your leadership.
It's crazy. He's the best.
Oh, thank you very much.
Out of the Dems.
All right. Next up, Nancy Guthrie here. Stay with us.
It's crazy. Got to give him props. He's doing a great job. All right, let's see what's next.
Welcome back. The search for Nancy Guthrie continues at this hour after law enforcement officials say that the 84-year-old was abducted from her Tucson, Arizona home last Saturday night. Nancy's daughter, NBC News anchor Savannah Guthrie, issuing an emotional message last night on Instagram to the possible abductor, pleading for the return of her mother. Joining me now are Fox News contributors, former FBI Special Agent Nicole Parker and retired NYPD Inspector Paul Morrow. Thanks very much to you both for being here. Paul, you've been on the ground now for over a week in Tucson, Arizona. What are the main takeaways that you can tell us right now?
Well, in terms of being on the ground there, one of the things I can tell you is that the neighborhood where this occurred is pretty remote, and it's not the kind of thing you're going to casually come across. I think that argues that this was certainly targeted, which is one of the initial questions everybody had. I don't think it's an accident that they went for Savannah's mother, but also the street where this occurred, the streets are so narrow, you actually almost can't get two cars to pass each other. Why does that matter? Because of the white van. Now, we haven't heard much about that, but that was one of the salient clues that came out, New York Post reporting. And it was actually unusual enough that a neighbor reported it to the police and they responded. So I think that one of the things that the task force right now is scraping at very, very hard is, in addition to looking at a digital footprint that might have been left by a perpetrator on the night of, go backwards all the way past the days when the van was there to see if they can pick out somebody that was surveilling the location, because this does seem targeted. And as we know, they knew enough to likely disable some of the lights, disable what they thought was a live camera in front. All of that argues some real reconnaissance.
Well, much has been made of the fact that the kidnapper spent 41 minutes inside of her home, right? When you look at the timeline and when the first camera, the Ring camera, was shut off and when her pacemaker stopped working. Does that indicate to you that the perpetrator knew her or knows her well?
I mean, it certainly argues a level of comfort that you'd be very, very surprised to find in an abduction. It also argues that you probably have more than one person here, one person to control that scene. That it's a big house, and to then manage the extraction. But then not only that, but as part of a kidnapping, you always need not only somebody to watch the person who's kidnapped, but then to handle the logistics of doing the communications, going out for supplies, because you have to obviously secrete yourselves someplace that you can't be found. It's more complicated than it sounds. That's why so few of them are successful. And in this case, I would argue that you have more than one person, and they were either comfortable in the location, or, as I said, they did a lot of reconnaissance, and maybe they were either looking for something specific or trying to figure out how to get themselves out of there when it didn't go exactly the way they planned.
Nicole, this video really struck me, the latest video that Savannah put out. Let's take a look, and I want to get your take on this. Here it is that she released last night. Watch.
We received your message, and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
That's crazy.
Celebrate with her. We will pay. What's your take?
Those are the key words that I selected as well. Just listening to that statement, the words beg, celebrate, peace, valuable, and we will pay. And we've known from the beginning when these ransom emails came through, there's one of three options. It's either legitimate, they're a hoax, or they're a false flag by someone who's trying to buy time or make a distraction for law enforcement to send them down a rabbit hole so that they're looking at these ransom emails instead of focusing on putting all efforts towards investigating the actual crime itself. But again, this has been a week. We all knew that she was in a health condition that we heard she had 24 hours that she really needed that medication. The ransom emails, they're running out of time. And what it comes down to is the Guthrie family, we are all praying with them. We want a safe return of Nancy. And at this point, they've been given a deadline of Monday, and $6 million is a very large sum of money. When it's your mother, you can never, ever put a price tag on the life of your mother. And so at this point, they have hope. They have hope, and they're saying, we will pay. I know that the FBI has been looking into this very closely and working very closely with the family, but at the end of the day, it is the family's decision. But let's make an important point here. They want the $6 million. They want it in Bitcoin. Bitcoin operates on a public blockchain, and every transaction is permanently recorded and visible. And they can hold it in Bitcoin for a substantial period of time. But eventually, if they ever want to cash that money out, they will have to provide ID, social security numbers, driver's licenses, things of that sort in order to cash that out. And that's something that law enforcement is looking at very closely. And again, remember, every interaction that they have, that creates more data points of evidence digitally for the FBI to look into. And I believe that at this point, what the FBI is focusing on quite heavily is tightening up the timeline. We were given that initial timeline in that press conference. What they're doing is they're reviewing every digital and technological artifact, every single piece of evidence. And again, there's things that we've discussed very openly. There's things that obviously the FBI knows that the public has no idea about, and it's best to keep that quiet and confidential, not to compromise the integrity of the investigation. But obviously things like cameras, the CAS, the cell phones, the cell phone pings, any video, any images, the pacemaker. I can't tell you how important to me the pacemaker is indicative of the level of stress in somebody. That heart rate is going to go up and down based on distress that someone is facing. If I were an investigator, I would be looking very closely at that pacemaker and looking, when was her heart rate going up? Who was she around? What was she doing? And then piecing that together with the cell phones. Who was she communicating with? Who was she in the presence of? And again, extremely important to look. Investigators returned again to Annie Guthrie's home last night. They're gathering evidence. There's a reason that they were there. Again, no suspect has been named. No person of interest has been named, but that's important to look at. Also, we want to keep praying. You know, in law enforcement, we see the worst of the worst, but you know what? There's hope, and let's pray and let's hope for the best, and to have peace in this difficult and dark time.
Paul, what about that? The fact that Savannah's sister Annie's home was probed again. Annie and her husband Tommaso.
Right. Listen, it's very, very difficult to read the tea leaves of an investigation. Everybody who's ever run one knows that inside the investigation and outside the investigation is a vast gulf. What they're likely trying to do is corroborate stuff that they're getting, but I wouldn't read too much into it yet. The sheriff himself said that we're not ruling anybody out. We're not ruling anybody in. So they may be out there just trying to corroborate specific details that they're getting from interviews, trying to put together the timeline. I know that it looked like they were taking some photographs. There's a lot of speculation regarding what that could mean. But I think let's just hold back a little bit and see where this goes, because one of the things we should recognize is that, the people that are in and around her, you're going to get a lot of information about those people fast. The family is cooperating, as we know. They are, I'm sure, looking at that timeline very closely. So that kind of thing tends to happen fast. So let's see where this goes.
All right. Thanks very much. Of course, we've got a spotlight on it. Special Agent Nicole Parker and retired NYPD Inspector Paul Morrow. Thank you. We'll be right back with Claudia Tenney.
That's a crazy story, man. So tomorrow Monday, we're going to see what happens.
So back.
Hopefully they get caught.
Welcome back. Well, the stakes are intensifying between the United States and Iran as they hold nuclear negotiations. They did so in Oman on Friday after the U.S. shot down an Iranian drone, which was approaching the U.S. Armada, which remains in striking distance of the rogue nation. Joining me now is New York Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, who is a member of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, it's great to see you today. Thanks for being here. First, on Iran, do you expect that we are going to see this flare up again? And should the president be doing more to help the people of Iran, in your view?
Well, look, what the president has done is given a very clear red line. We have, decimated basically the nuclear capacity. The proxies have been minimized. The economy's in shambles, and the people are rising up against the Iranian people. And President Trump has a lot of leadership out there from other different countries for the first time. I've been leading an effort to get the IRGC designated as a terrorist organization. Europe finally did that, the EU. But the president right now, this is no time to offer lifelines to the regime. This is the time to enforce the red lines. And I'm hoping the president will continue to do that. Iran knows what the terms are. The president has been very clear. Let's hope Iran comes to the table and negotiates with them. He's willing to talk, unlike a lot of other presidents. He's the peace president.
Yep.
All right. Very, very good. Back here to stateside, we could see the Department of Homeland Security shut down on Friday. You just heard Senator John Fetterman. He says it probably will shut down. I cannot get my head around why the Democrats are so against showing ID to vote, by the way.
This is such an easy issue, Maria. It's so bipartisan. They're trying to create a partisan issue out of nothing. They're using, ancient terminology like Jim Crow laws, like Chuck Schumer. Look, there's nothing more fundamental than providing ID. I was just, as I think I was one of the observers in the recent Honduran election with the Intelligence Committee. And we observed the Honduran country require ID, proof that you're at the residence that you're at, and also biometrics so that you are the person you say you are. And requiring citizenship is so simple. Let me tell you something. The New York State Court of Appeals, a very far left-leaning court, determined that New York City's law that would allow non-citizens voting in our elections was unconstitutional. They struck it down. You must be a citizen to vote in our elections. We just want one citizen, one vote. It's totally legitimate. Every Democrat and Republican should vote for this. It's so obvious, Maria.
You would think. So you've got a House vote this upcoming week. I want to take a break and then talk to you about this vote coming up on the SAVE Act this week. Stay with us. Claudia Tenney is here, and we'll be right back.
All right. It sounds simple. All right. At the end of the day, voter ID just makes sense. All right. And why is it that they don't want ID? It sounds like they want to cheat. So to keep it simple, vote yes. How about that? But us, we got to keep a close eyes on the news because they're trying to divide us and break the country up. So that's why we got to pay attention. Good thing that she didn't bring up the fact that Trump didn't apologize for calling Obama a monkey and his wife, because he really didn't call them a monkey. They posted a message on True Social on his behalf, and they had Obama, or they had a monkey jumping around with Obama's face in front of it. So that didn't come off. So to me, that's fake news, because the man, they keep calling him a racist, but he's not. All right. Before we move on, let me address the comments here. We got one here. It says, yes, the big creator, credit card companies, the big job creators are credit card companies. That's right. Big shout out to the ТEСB. Sorry if I messed up your name. There are more Republicans voting illegally than actual illegals trying to vote. See, that's crazy. We got to fix that. All right. That is a problem. Both sides, Democrats and Republicans. How about showing an ID and showing that you're a citizen? Otherwise, you get deported. Let's keep it real. Let's be honest. And the last comment here, those Iranians protested because Trump promised to protect them. Their death is on him. I don't know, man. Trump is the only one not scared of Iran or the Middle East or any country over there. Every single president always tiptoes around the Middle East, and we can't really do another endless war, or we can't mess with them. And all the presidents always scared, except for Trump. Trump is the only one putting in the work with no fear, going up against Iran. But in any case, hopefully you enjoyed the show. Give us a thumbs up. My name is Noel. Over here is brick outside. I gotta go put up the heat because New York City, ooh, thank God I don't live over there. There's no parking, snow everywhere, and you gotta take off all the snow before tomorrow. Tomorrow's Monday, so people who live in New York, you gotta move your cars. Alternate street parking is the worst. Think I don't have to deal with that. So the only thing that I'm going to deal with tomorrow Monday, hopefully Savannah Guthrie's mother gets released. It should be in every news, like ABC, CBS, CNN. Everybody should be talking about this case, that this lady should be released. It's insane. Instead on CNN, all they talk about is Trump being a racist, calling Obama a monkey, which indirectly he didn't. It wasn't his post. I mean, it was on his truth account, but somebody else put it on there. But what do you think? So like I said, let me go put up the heat. It's freezing over here. My name is Noel over here at Verbal on Life. Make sure you hit that like button before you go anywhere. Comment down below and see you in the next video. Peace.